I think we'll just give it another minute or two and let a couple more people jump in, and then we'll get started. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to be talking about presentations and proposals. We're going to go over how to prepare for presentations or proposals, the different types that we have to offer, and some of the talking points that go along into those, and then talk about a little bit of follow-up after your presentation or proposal. So let's jump into it.
All right, so we want to start the meeting off with some questions and some interaction from everybody on the call. So one of the things we wanted to talk about was give us an example of what do you think the best way is to present? Do you think that's in Zoom or in person? I know, especially the last 2 years with COVID, we kind of had to alter ourselves to be able to present on Zoom. And so do you have a preference as to one way or another now that you've had an opportunity probably to do both? Um, and any tips that you have if you have to do one over Zoom? If you don't volunteer, I'm going to call on you.
For this very reason, I prefer in person.
Exactly. Trying to find people to pick on.
Well, before you pick on me, but this is Bob. Obviously, I'd rather do it in person because of the very nature that you can read people a lot better, and there's a lot of. That's extremely important to be able to read their body language and just read their facial expressions. You can't get that on Zoom. I would only use Zoom as a backup.
Agree. I think that Zoom, like we can make it work, but ultimately it's not the most ideal thing to be able to try to have a conversation. I think, like Bob said, I think it's hard to read people. I remember when, even at the very beginning of COVID, Rochelle and I did some interviews via Zoom. And I was like, oh, I really like them. Let's bring them in. And then I met them in person and I'm like, I got a totally different view meeting them in person than I did on Zoom. So I just think it's just being able to read the body language, having the conversation. I think it's easier in Zoom to get distracted. Whereas in person, I mean, you've got to face the person, so you're not checking emails and trying to do other things, which I think we're all guilty of on these Zoom meetings, as we're trying to multitask. So give me an example of something where you did a presentation and met with a client that was successful, and why do you think it was successful? Really gonna make me call on you?
Michelle, were you saying something? I think you're on mute. I can say I think my most successful presentations or proposals that I've ever done, the biggest part of it was just that I was prepared and I did my research. I knew what I was talking about going into it, and because I was prepared, felt more confident to talk about what I needed to talk about. So I think a lot of the success comes from the initial preparation.
And I think that it really kind of sets the tone as you go into a presentation. If you're going into it with confidence and you're going into it knowing what you're ready to talk about, you've prepared yourself. And so when you go in there, you very much come off as the expert because you prepared, versus not being, coming in late and not really being ready to answer questions. I also think one thing of a successful presentation is opening up with a question to have that client talk first. So, for example, from like a property management side, so sometimes we get people who are coming over from a current management company and maybe have some frustrations and things as to why they're looking and wanting to switch. And I think you get the same thing with a seller. If you've got someone that's interviewing agents and they've had it listed before, they're coming with some frustrations. And so for me, it's always good to kind of hear that feedback from them first. And that kind of helps me set my tone for my presentation on what I start with. So to make sure that as they give you that feedback, that you're touching on that as you're presenting and as you're talking about services and what sets the company and you as a person apart from the competitor. Any other, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I just said, I just want to go back to the Zoom versus in person. When has it been successful, or why have you used Zoom instead of in person now that we've been back to a somewhat normal work schedule? When would be the appropriate time to use Zoom? Does anybody have?
I'm working with some clients right now that one of them is in state and one of them is out of state. So regardless of how we meet, we're going to end up on Zoom in some form anyway. So it's actually easier for us to all be on Zoom rather than try to be in the room with one of them and on Zoom with another.
That's a great example. And then I also think maybe if you're having a hard time scheduling with someone because of time constraints, that they may be more up to go ahead and book with you on Zoom if you really are having a hard time booking out more time with them to meet in person as well.
I would say probably too, in the last couple months, I've had more homeowners associations that want to offer to let their owners attend our presentation. And so giving that Zoom option has allowed owners to be able to jump on that call and they get to hear the questions that the board is asking during the interview process and how companies are responding. I think it's been a great way to involve their community and let owners feel like they're a part of that decision making and that process. So I think Zoom's been beneficial for that aspect.
Okay. So what are you currently working on? Does anybody have presentations that they're working on right now or proposals? Simone, I know you've been working on a lot of stuff.
Say that again. I'm sorry. I was
Well, I
moving
said
my
I think-
camera around, do many things
No,
at
I
once.
said I know you've been working on a lot of stuff. Do you have anything that you could share with the group that you've been working on?
For like presentation excitement.
Mm-hmm.
What am I doing with my life?
New management. Any new management proposals?
Oh, I'm not currently working on. I'm trying to get things, an understanding of just processes down, in regards to like Section 8. To try to take on, I guess ultimately I would be trying to take on new management that way. So I will be at some point looking into the best way to do that. But right now I'm just trying to do the prep work to like make sure I have all my information. Things that kind of drive me nuts is like feeling like you're going to something and you have no idea what you're talking about, or it's like, oh, I just don't know. And, like, I just think it does not present, it doesn't present well or doesn't present professionally if, you kind of didn't do any sort of research prior to a conversation. So you're just not ready. And I think therefore nobody kind of takes you seriously. So, I just had a 3-hour meeting this morning, of just trying to get those processes down and really have an understanding. So I've been working with a lot of different people. I'm sure Amanda's tired of me and my crazy photos I keep sending her, like, to help. I don't know. So no, I'm not really doing any new management just yet, but give me a minute. I'll get there.
Does anyone have anything they're working on that they'd like to share?
This Bob, I don't have any presentation I'm currently working on, but Simone makes me think, you know, between Zoom and in person, as we all know, everything's a double-edged sword. And if you do Zoom, you got to prepare all kinds of slides. You have to know how to use Zoom to make, when you do the presentation, you just can't use your face. You got to, no matter how pretty it is, you have to have documents. You have to know how to present the documents like you're doing here on this call. And if you do it in person, you know, you have to dress for the right. You have to make sure you're going to have you have the opportunity to do the hand gestures and some other things. But both of them have the benefits that the others don't have. But I think, as we spoke earlier on, in person gives you more flexibility and a few more benefits. But you know.
So on proposals in the past that you've met, this is for anyone, that you've met with boards, or you've met with a homeowner, or you've met with a potential new client for a residential listing or commercial listing, what could you have done differently? What didn't work? What do you think you could have done better? This is open to anyone.
Well, kind of like some people are talking about with the preparation. So obviously event management is brand new and we've been eager to get it going. So I definitely have taken a couple of meetings not having what we're actually going to offer under my belt. And I can think of one in particular, Rochelle, that you and I pitched together, that the property management side was very clean, but the event management, it was like the very first proposal we ever did. And it was just unclear. I still don't know if we would have won that one with more clarity just based on where they are positioned right now. But I think we would have had a much better shot if I had taken a little more time to prepare and really think through what we were trying to offer them and have my language down, essentially. So with our event management proposals right now, we're going through that whole process of like, what's the template? What are we actually trying to get you to say yes to? And then where does each proposal need its own like unique touch with it a little bit?
Right. So to kind of touch on what Natalie was talking about a year ago, we had met at a venue and she actually wasn't available. So to gather more information and do research first, we met with the board that runs this event venue. And we were proposing event management and property management of the building. I think probably because Natalie wasn't available to go with us, I think we were out of town or something. And you weren't able to go with us, that you didn't get all the information. It was, another employee that may not have been as seasoned at that time. So that plays into having enough research and getting enough information on the particular whatever you're pitching.
I think another thing that can be unsuccessful, I know it was for me one time, is not focusing on the whole picture. If you're just focusing on, the price or just focusing on the marketing, then you're kind of losing a step there. And you really have to focus on the full picture of what you're offering and the services that you can provide instead of just hammering it home with one point. Getting the full point across is going to make it all more successful.
Okay. All right. So we're going to go through some information, but I want you to think, we'll come back to this question in the end about what you're interested in learning more about. So we'll put everybody on pause for a second and take the pressure off. So we'll get through the presentation. And then, but as we're going, just keep thinking about what you're interested in learning more about as we go.
All right, so first step to preparing for your proposal would be to request the actual proposal. There's several different ways, especially in sales, that you can do a comparative market analysis or things like that. Ours are unique and company branded. So this right here is a screenshot showing on the core site. Under the marketing tab, you would scroll down to order forms, and there is an order form here for every different type of proposal that we have available. So between, sales and management and commercial, there used to be a few different ways of going about ordering them, but now they are all located in one spot. When you submit your order online, it's going to go to the right department to complete that request. So this is just a quicker, easier way for you guys to get your requests in. And before you do your request, or maybe as it's being prepared for you, you want to do a little bit more research on the property. Depending on, if you're doing an event, doing management, doing just a residential sale, there's several different places that you can look to research. The county assessor site, the MLS, RPR, the tax data website. Sometimes even commercial properties will have their own website. And then also the Secretary of State website can give you a little bit of information that you're looking for.
So gathering details, I mean, you want to know your product, but sometimes your product is the person as well. So it could be the owner or the board, trying to find out information about them before you start, when you're starting your research and gathering your details, so you know how to present to them. So how long have they owned the property? What did they purchase it for originally? Who did they buy it from? Who is currently managing? One of my favorite questions when I'm, talking to someone on a property management, and they are talking about maybe their past management company, I'm asking them, what did that management company do right for you? Or, what are you looking for differently? Why are you looking to make a change? So I have a little bit more information as I'm talking to them, and then in the future when I'm managing their property as well.
Looking at more specifics on the property, I mean, property specifics are pretty obvious. Anyone can find the bedrooms, the bathrooms, the square footage. That's going to give you, kind of an idea of the price range. Recent improvements or needed improvements. Somewhere that I researched this, it's not on those research resources up top here, but the Omaha Permits website will also show you any permits that were pulled on a property recently. So I've used this a lot when I'm looking for a buyer. I don't know how old the roof is. I'll check if there's been any permits pulled on it. So just as much information as you can gather and bring to your presentation, it really shows that you are putting your best foot forward. You don't have to ask the questions because you already have the answers and you're just going there to present yourself and your services. And then when it comes to pricing, curious on your guys' opinions. When you do a presentation or proposal, at what point do you discuss pricing or quote pricing, whether that's commission or your management fees or your service fees for events? Do you bring that to the presentation with you, or do you save that for later?
I generally have it available, but it's normally the last talking point that I have after I've had an opportunity to do my presentation and kind of walk through the conversation. Unless this would be on the management side, unless I learned more in that meeting that makes me maybe need to go back to the table on the pricing, then I will say, okay, well, I appreciate your time, but I will, I'll follow back up with you on the pricing.
Yeah, and it really depends on, was this a cold call that you just received? Is this someone that you actively were going after on the management side? So it isn't always going to be the same thing. It's going to be, develop on how you came about the contact or the property that you're pitching. And so a lot of times on our commercial property management side, if it was just a cold call, I'm gonna, have a conversation with them, go over some of our services, and then set up an appointment, maybe to view their property, to tour the property. And I will take a proposal with me, to that, but it's not gonna pricing in there because I really need to get some more information, before we price it. And that's gonna be the same, HOAs. Natalie, I'm assuming on event management too, a lot of times you're gonna have to do a lot more research and meeting and touring the property, or the venue, before you can come up with pricing for it.
And on the
Yeah.
sales, oh, sorry, go ahead.
You're good.
Okay. I was gonna say on the sales side, and I think Anne talked about this too in our Serhant class that we had recently. I totally agreed with her. I don't like to bring a price to my listing presentations for residential because I might have an idea, it's probably a $200,000 house, but you get in there and you see, oh, they've done all these upgrades, or oh, the house is trashed, it needs a lot of work. So I always like to go in with an idea of a range, but I don't ever like to give an exact number at my presentation because I want to go back, do a little more research, and I don't want to be tied to a price when after I get in the property, I've changed my mind. And then these are a few materials that you can use to customize your report. So we have templates for every different type of department, every different type of sale, but there's lots of things that you can add in there, kind of depending on what you want to focus on, how detailed you want to get. You can add any of our company materials, like our quarterly reports, or you can just pick out specific neighborhood pages for those, any of our monthly market updates, or you could even request a property flyer for that property. We don't have the pretty photos yet, but you can at least give them an idea of your marketing materials. And then RPR and CRS reports, we've got training videos on those if you guys want to get into those. Those can be really data heavy. So depending on who you're working with, maybe they're more analytical, want to see more data points. Those can be really good to add to your report as well. And then some other miscellaneous ones. I think an estimated cost sheet is really great to bring for a buyer or seller, or a proceeds sheet, so they have an idea of, what this is going to cost them. And even some blank contracts so that they can read through what they're actually going to be signing if they decide to move forward. Do you guys always add a management agreement when you go for a management proposal?
Not into the original proposal. On that, if I am in discussions with someone, I will, send a copy over so if they request it, so they want to take a look, and have questions. But, on the commercial side, it's a little bit different than just a residential, management. Same with the HOA in the commercial, are a little bit different. Kara can probably speak more to this. It really, the pricing is going to, because we're having that in the management agreement, and there's things that we may change as well, and adapt to that board or to that commercial owner, that I don't start with that, no. Kara, do you have any other suggestions or things that you do?
Yeah, it really just kind of depends. Like I generally want to, I guess the larger the property or the more in depth we're going with the management services, it is sometimes easier just to get all that information first and then be able to go back and maybe alter the management agreement or restructure pricing, or sometimes factors come into play after you've had an opportunity to really kind of dig into what they're looking for. So I don't necessarily like to present that up front.
And preparing for frequently asked questions, reservations that they may have. You should kind of have those ideas in your head of what questions are going to come up and how you would answer them. So when they ask, what experience do you bring to the table? Sorry, go ahead, Kara.
No, you're okay. Go ahead.
What experience do you bring to the table? You may have the experience yourself. If you're new, then you can just speak to the experience of the company and the portfolios that we have, the type of projects that we work on. So it doesn't always have to be just about you and your personal experience. You can really kind of use the company to talk yourself through that.
And I think it's important, and I think this is mentioned in past meetings, but always be ready for to me, it's the ultimate question, and that is, what differentiates you from any other agent I choose?
100%. That is the number one question that's going to get asked, whether you're on the sales side or the property management side. They want to know, why are you better? What makes you different? What do you offer that your competitors not? So I'd like to ask a couple of you guys on the call, like, what is your answer? How do you normally respond to that? And how do you normally respond to that from the management side?
I think I try and hit on the fact that I'm a licensed agent and a property manager, so I kind of see both sides of the market. And as a property manager, we can bring, if they wanted to sell or they're looking for new properties, we can bring that to the table as well as just managing the property and finding them tenants.
Perfect. Bob, what's your response when you get asked that question?
I always tell them, isn't it obvious? No, I tell them my experience and what I've lived in Omaha my whole life, and I'm very familiar with the market and have been. But I said the most important thing that any agent can give you is communicate with you. Communications is what it's really about after the knowledge. But communications, and I tell them that I'll be available for them whenever they call. If I don't answer, I'll get back to them immediately, that I'm available, and that I'll always answer their questions, and I'll tell them what's going on as we move along, so that there's never any question of where we're at or where we're going.
Perfect. Natalie, how do you answer that question on the event side?
To be honest, this will sound a little arrogant. Currently, most of the meetings I'm having, my reputation has preceded me, so I have not had to answer that question very often. But even in those meetings, I make sure they know that there's a reason my reputation has preceded me, that some of the work we're doing in events is not happening anywhere else. You can't find someone that can plan an event for you and manage the space and also connect you with property management and maintenance and things like that. And you for sure can't find someone who's doing large scale events that actually cares about the space they're happening in. So that is kind of the benefit of where we're getting into the neighborhood itself or the space itself, not just doing a one and done thing and walking away.
Perfect. I think Natalie brings up a really great point. Like, you kind of build that reputation already to some extent. And I think the other side of that too is as you're working with clients and as you're coming across doing transactions, and that you're getting reviews and getting feedback and asking them to, share their experience about you on our the Google reviews, or if they send you a nice email, take that piece in the email and send it to marketing and have them attach it to your bio. Because just as much as you're researching who you're going to go meet with, they're doing the same. And when you Google your name, what do they find? So I would definitely challenge you that if you're Google yourself and see what clients would see if they typed your name in, or just to keep it in mind, what would they find if your Facebook page is available for everybody to see? Like, keep those kinds of things in mind as you're posting stuff on social media and you're doing stuff on other social sites, that someone could Google that and make sure that you're representing yourself in the best manner. So highly encourage you to make sure that you're getting reviews and getting that feedback, and then either putting that on the Google stuff or sharing that in your bio so that they can hear and see all of your clients' experience with you. And then also be ready to, we didn't note this either, but be ready to respond to if somebody wrote something bad. Like, not everybody's perfect. Be ready to respond like know our Google reviews and read through them and be ready to respond in case somebody asks you, well, I read this experience, what happened here? I think we need to be open that we're not perfect, but I think it sets us apart that like Ryan responds to every single Google review that we get, and that we do take it very seriously, and we include those that need to be involved depending on what the complaint is. I think we can't hide from that, and we need to be ready to answer that.
All right.
And then
Oh, go
make
ahead,
sure
Jen.
that you're able to talk about a little bit of all the services that we offer as a company.
Okay, preparing yourself. And we'll get, this is pretty basic knowledge, so we'll kind of move through this quickly, but practice makes perfect. Preparing yourself and practicing. What are some ways that you guys have practiced? Has anyone did role playing with other team members or your family members or just in the mirror?
I always on the car ride there, I'm constantly saying it out loud over and over, and that way it's in my head and fresh when I get there.
Very good. All right. Anybody else? Does anyone record themselves?
I was just thinking, doing a practice run on Zoom.
Hey, Morgan,
or
this is Ben.
Teams, recording it and then watching it over again. Just hearing yourself talk could teach you a lot.
Go ahead, Ben.
I think he was answering a call, to be honest.
Okay.
Yep, sorry.
You said, this is Ben.
Hi,
Okay.
Ben.
Just gonna say something real quick. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Although I haven't did this before, but something that would help. I had to take a public speech class before, and they talked about just like even the night before, like wearing something that you feel very confident in, and like standing in the mirror and literally like doing this speech. And so when we had to do our presentation in class, like I did notice the confidence because I had on something I was very comfortable in and like watch myself in the mirror. So I think that's a plus because sometimes just what you have on like exudes confidence itself. So I think that's very important once I step into and doing these presentations.
Great. And those are the next 3 bullet points. So that was perfect. But keeping it real, being yourself. I think it's kind of been fun on these last couple universities that we've had, having these conversations and this practice through Zoom with everyone, just to be yourself. I find it a lot harder. I was telling our group yesterday that I'm okay to go up on a stage or present in front of, 300 people, 500 people, and probably a little bit nervous. But on Zoom, I'm 10 times more nervous. So I've been trying to tell myself just to try and have a conversation when I'm talking to clients on Zoom or doing these presentations, and just to be yourself. So I think that really helps.
Yeah, I think it's good to remember that you're selling yourself. You're selling your services, but it's you that your client's going to be working with. So you need to keep in mind that, they have to like you first before they want to go forward with the services you're offering.
Can I add maybe a slightly contradictory thought to this? So I end up pitching the same thing over and over again, and I speak about it a lot. So if I practice too much, I become very dry and robotic. So this is part of even just knowing yourself and knowing your style. I can't say it in the car on the way there, or I will like literally have dead face, like be the least fun person ever talking about how I want to throw all your parties. And it just doesn't work. So for me, like I listen to pump up music all the way there and like dance in my car a little bit, or like take a minute if I'm doing it on Zoom, take a minute to like walk around and make sure I'm not shifting immediately from like sending emails straight into this meeting. Like I take a second to do that, but know your personality. If you need to like hype yourself up a little bit, do that. Don't be afraid to do that. It's awkward, and definitely my team has caught me doing it before and laughed at me, but it's great.
So you're like Angela, you prepare the night before and then you just relax that morning and let it happen.
Just to,
Natalie is my spirit animal.
just to add what Natalie said, I used to give a lot of, in my former life, I used to give a lot of presentations to very large groups. I mean, Lincoln to, all kinds of people in Lincoln with the state senators and everything. And I noticed as I went on over the years, you want that nervousness. You do not want to feel that real comfortable, because if you feel comfortable, you lose the luster. You never want to lose that luster. And that's what I see here Natalie saying. You want that, I don't know if you call it luster or nervousness or something, but if you get too prepared and you don't have that little bit of nervousness like you have before a game, or I don't think you're not excited enough, and I don't think you do this. It's the same kind of job. Does that make sense? I don't know. Maybe I'm not saying
Too
it well.
dull.
Yeah. You don't want to lose the luster.
All right, so we're going to jump into the presentations, the kind of the meat of the proposals that we have to offer. And we're going to start with the introduction pages.
So the first section is really, it's your resume. So it starts with the Why Choose PJMorgan Real Estate and goes through a little paragraph about kind of who we are, where we came from, and the services we offer. And then it goes into your bio page. And this is directly from the website. You should be keeping it updated. Again, add testimonials on here, add credentials, anything else you've gotten. But it is really, this could be an easy part to skip over in a presentation if you're just trying to go fast, but it's your resume. It's why you're qualified to be in front of them. So take the time to go through it and explain it and really touch on the things you've done in the past, the things the company's done, and pull from experience.
So every proposal has a lot of the same elements, including those introduction pages. And then they're usually going to start with some sort of property specific page. So this kind of touches back to the research to do before you start your proposal. If you bring as much information as you can, we can make these property specific pages for you that are really impressive. They're very personalized. The more information that you can gather, the better these pages are going to look.
And on the property management side, for commercial and for HOA, we have been using these to, if you're at that point in your proposal, to insert your pricing here. So they have that in writing as well. We can pretty much do whatever you want with these pages.
But this is just showing, even though this is a template that we're using, we personalized it specific to the property, which I think is more impressive to clients than a lot of us even realize.
So if you're putting together a commercial proposal, whether it's for a lease listing or a sale listing, you can reach out to Ryan directly, or Reggie's happy to help, or even me too. You can ask me any questions, but the bottom there shows the proposal content. So as the Why Choose Us, the property information, and then it goes into details about marketing the property. And then after the comparable market analysis and the services offered. So the market analysis is really your chance to pull comps, pull what you think it's worth, anything like that. And then these are the marketing pages. So they are kind of what we standard do as a company for each commercial listing. And those again are templated, but they could be edited if you wanted to kind of take a different approach with the marketing. So we could add in some examples of stuff we've done in the past.
So this page is going to go over who in the proposal that you want to present. So really focus in on, of course, yourself would be in there, but also focus in on others in the company, depending on what your proposal is for. That can help contribute to showing their experience and their background that will bring value to what we're trying to pitch. So anytime in property management, depending on if it's residential or commercial, we put Rochelle and I, but then we also highlight on the operations and the support side of the property management team, which is huge in that we are a smaller company, but we do have other staff available to be able to assist. It's not just one or two people that are managing.
Your initial contact. So like we talked about before, maybe it is someone that just, you had received a cold call, or it was a referral from a friend of a friend, or this is someone that you have been researching that you want to meet with and talk with. I will use this questionnaire. I use this before I turn in all my paperwork once we have their management contract. But I also use this, maybe not ask every single question, but I use this as a basis when I am just trying to get some basics from the owner, or with Kara, with a board member, to find out more about their property. So I have an idea. Some of the stuff, if it was, I was wanting to present to them, I may have some of the information already filled in, and then I'm just verifying that information with the owner or the board member to make sure that we have all the correct information to be able to price the management correctly.
So then this page is going to cover the services that we offer. So this will vary a little bit. There's a lot of similarities in the proposal packets, but it will vary based on the type of management that you're pitching to. But making sure that you're taking the time and just going over, for the management fee that we're giving them, here's everything that's included in that, and really spending the time to highlight on these, and then spending the time to explain these as you're reading through them with them.
And then additional services that we offer. So going over with them what we can do for them, how we're going to make their life easier in managing their property. So we're going to collect rents for them. We're going to collect dues for them. We're going to be able to do their bill payments. Great things. We have online payments options available for their clients, whether that is their tenant or their HOA house, or someone in their HOA, and the ease of the financials for them. We're going to have a monthly financial reporting to them. We're available, throughout the month if they have questions or need any additional information. We're available at the end of the year to get all their information to them, end of the year for their accountant to finalize and do their taxes.
And then for residential listings, you guys can always reach out to Susan or myself or the sales support team if you guys need any help with research, pricing, or just putting the proposal together. You can see it starts with the Why Choose Us page, goes into listing and marketing, some property information. The comparable market analysis can be customized to however you want it. You can add a report. We can just put some MLS comps in there, however you want to do it. So some of the main pages that I always like to highlight on here is the preparation for listing your home. I mainly focus on the listing paperwork. I'll try to bring a listing agreement with me so that they can actually see it, but I like to speak to the paperwork that they're going to be signing so that, when it comes down to it, we're ready to go. It doesn't feel as overwhelming. And then the checklist to prepare to list your home. This comes in handy a lot, especially if there's a little something that I want them to focus on, but don't really want to say it because I don't want to sound rude. I'll really highlight this page and, say, make sure you go through this. This is what's going to make your home market itself the best. There's a similar page that talks about preparing for photos and whatnot. So it just a lot of it seems obvious, but if a seller actually used this and went through it, it would really prepare their home perfectly for showings. And then a little bit more about marketing your home. It talks about our professional photo gallery. We do professional photos on all of our listings. I think that's a huge selling point. There's nothing worse than seeing a listing with $400,000 listing with pictures that were taken on somebody's iPhone 4. It drives me nuts. So the professional photos are really what's going to market the property the best. And then we go in, I usually talk about our social media, just how our marketing team is so amazing with it. We really push our listings on social media. And then we get into different things about showings, and I don't like to really read these page for page. I kind of just use these as talking points. You know, if they're asking me questions as we go about timing or open houses, things like that. When I get to this page, that's my chance to talk about that. And then it goes into a quick overview of negotiating the deal. And this doesn't, I mean, every deal's different, every situation's different, so this doesn't cover all of it. But I use this page to talk about kind of how the market's moving right now, what kind of offers we think we can expect, what's going to happen after we do accept an offer, and then start talking about inspections and things like that. Also, wanted to touch on the buyer guide that we have. These are also available on the core site. You can grab them, print them yourself, or you can order one for the support staff to print and bind for you. I've had so much success with these lately. I think they're really impressive for buyers because not a lot of agents do this. But it really just goes over the whole process for them. So not always am I selling myself when I'm going through this. The buyer has already decided they're going to work with me. But I like to use these to answer those questions up front. I want them to feel prepared when we're getting into buying so that, you know, it can be stressful, it can be overwhelming. But since we took an hour to sit down and go over this together, I let them take a copy of it home with them for them to review as, you know, time passes. This really eases their mind, gets a lot of questions answered up front, and helps me set expectations, especially in this kind of market where it can be tough on buyers.
So another thing that we want to highlight on is our in-house maintenance team. So there is an extreme advantage to being able to use our in-house team. I know a lot of contractors, it's hard to get them out to the properties. It's hard with scheduling. Some of them are several weeks out. So we do have a maintenance team. They're $65 an hour. So I just make sure that the client is aware, whether it's on the sales side or the property management side, that we do have a dedicated staff to assist with maintenance items.
And then items that our maintenance team can't help us with. It's so great to bring in our connections and who we know and the relationships that we've curated over the years with our trusted vendors. It's so nice when you're talking with a potential owner and they are telling you that they've had at a commercial owner recently that with their current management company, their signs on their building were in disrepair, and this owner actually isn't from Omaha, and they didn't have a lot of connections in sign companies. And so we were able to, you know, give them 3 names. So we know our connections and we know who can help them if they work with us.
Natalie, I just realized that the slide that I made for events isn't on here, so I'm sorry. But we also wanted to introduce Natalie, which she's on here, the director of our event management team. And those, I mean, that's another unique service that our company offers that other real estate companies do not. Anything you want to add to that, Natalie?
Yeah, I think just sharing, there are a lot of ways I think that we can support your properties, your clients with event management. So some different things. There's some that are a little more obvious and some that aren't. So we have 3 main services we're offering with event management. So that's full scale neighborhood activation. This is what we're doing down in Millwork Commons right now. The ownership group wants the neighborhood to be alive. And so we plan a full calendar of events. We have a full-time team member down there, but then we also coordinate any rentals of spaces down there for them for event purposes. Venue management. So this, our current best example is the living room. We've been managing that for several years. And so we have a lot of people in town who think they have a great space for events, but they don't know how to run it. Well, we can come run it for them, and we can deal with all the, as my team likes to say, we don't get a lot of bridezillas, but we get a lot of momzillas. And property owners don't necessarily want to deal with that or the day-to-day of having to care for someone who is planning a wedding, because it can be a lot at times. So we can come in and offer that as well. We can also offer just one-off event planning services. So I think Kara and I have talked about recently, like say you're doing an HOA and they plan one annual event every year, but it's, you know, the board members are trying to pull all the pieces together and it's stressful or they don't want to do it. We can step in for single event planning, or you're working with a commercial client that's got a new space and they're really excited about it and they want to plan a grand opening, but they have no idea how to do that. We can step in for one-off things like that. And then I would say the last piece is we can also do consulting kind of in any of those areas. So say someone has a commercial space and they're like, I think this could be a great venue, but I'm not really sure. We're working on a couple assessments right now with property owners that says like, yeah, I think this could be a space. Here's what I think you could make off of it. Or, you know, you would need to do these improvements in order for it to work that way. So we can step in a lot of different ways. If you're ever unsure, just reach out to me and let me know, because we are willing to explore it.
Thank you. Sorry, I forgot your slide.
You're good. I don't need a slide. I can talk all day.
All right, so once your presentation's done, what's next? I think one important thing to keep in mind, this was a lesson that we did from our Sirhan class, but I feel like it fits in really well here, is that you are persuading someone, you're selling your services. So there was 3 points to that. Let it sink in. You know, sometimes with sales, things can move really fast, but with management, with commercial, things can move a little bit slower. Maybe they need time to think about it. So let them take that time to sit and think about it. You've left your presentation with them. They can look through it, think it over, come back to you with questions, and just give them a minute for it to sink in before you reach back out. And then always remember that you're solving a problem. You're helping them make their life easier by eliminating some sort of issue that they have, whether that's that they just need to move, they're sick of managing their own building, they need to plan a wedding, whatever that is, you're helping with an issue. And that makes them really, it makes it hard to say no if they see the benefit to your solution. And then no room for no. This one's, I think, a little bit obvious, but always good to point out, to always keep your questions open-ended. You don't ever want to ask yes or no questions, because all you're going to get is a yes or no. I mean, even just as simple as ending it off with, do you have any questions? They're probably going to say no. But instead, just rephrasing that to, what questions or concerns do you have? Now you're opening up the dialogue and making them answer the question with more than just a yes or no answer. And then the follow-up, this was another little bit of a lesson from our Sirhan class, but he's got a quote up here talking about how many times he's got a new client because they never heard back from their broker or their agent or their manager. We talked about this in one of our sales meetings too. I think it was like 90% of buyers or sellers don't even remember their agent's name after the first year because they never follow up. And he describes following up, follow through, follow back, kind of referencing a golf game. I don't play golf. I don't really know, but just following up, it's easy, and you can't ever expect the client or the person that you're pitching to be in touch with you. You need to follow up with them and, you know, stay ahead of it. And then following through, also very obvious, but not always easy to do. Just always saying always doing what you say you're going to do. Never let them question if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing for them. And then if you don't get the deal, you don't get the management, you can always follow back. And I know that there's a little bit different timing depending on what kind of client you're going after. So what kind of timing do you guys do for follow-up?
For property management, you know, once we have done the presentation, we're going to follow up in the next couple days. If we haven't heard back right away. If we don't land the proposal and land the client, we're going to follow up again in 6 months. I calendar them so I can call them in 6 months, because maybe they aren't happy to run manage their HOA.
What about commercial, Scott? What do you think about timing for follow-up and following back?
I think with a commercial listing, you kind of watch if it's gone to someone else. And normally those listings are for 6 months. So right around the 4-month period, if you see it's still for lease, it might be a good time to follow up and see if you might be able to provide better services.
Say for sales, you follow up about 5 minutes after you leave your meeting. All right, and then lastly, we talk about a lot of different services that we offer. I don't know the first thing about management or events, but I tell people that I can help them with it because I know that I can connect them with the expert that can make everything happen for them. So this is just an example of, maybe you're focused on sales, but you find out that your client has a portfolio of properties that they want to manage. This right here is just a great template for you to make that connection with the director of that department. Let them take it from there, or you can be as involved as you want and learn more about that department. But it's completely up to you how you want to proceed with it.
Go ahead. Yeah. So we're going to go back to the very first slide and that question. What are you interested in learning more about now that we've gone through?
Interesting.
Bueller.
Nobody's interested in anything?
I am. I'm interested just in learning on more about just acquiring and bringing in new business. For me, I think my expertise is more in multifamily. So I'd be really excited to bring in more multifamily units, especially since the ones I have now are currently just about 100% occupied. I feel like it might free up a little bit more time to put into that and start going for those. So I guess I would want to know where to really start with that. I mean, I see for rent signs in places, and I'm not really sure who, manages them currently. So I would just kind of like to know where to start with that. We're bringing in new multifamily units.
So I think that goes back to, and we've talked about a little bit this, and we're doing a focus group on this that Kara has started. But doing research on, in those examples that Amanda brought up in the beginning, researching who owns the properties, who's managing the property, and what we can do different. I know a lot of times maybe you're driving by and that building's in disrepair. You would be able to focus, highly on our maintenance services on that, or our vendor services, or exterior painting, would be probably a place that we could start with that, but more than happy to help you with that. And then in the focus group, I think that you've joined already, correct?
Mhm.
Yeah. We'll be working on that in the group that Kara has started.
Right.
I think a lot of this is just the advantage of being here is that you can speak to all of these things just enough to open the door. And, for example, residential management, I could speak to it enough. I'm no expert on it, but once I make that connection and I connect them with Kara, she can take it from there and she's going to close the deal. And expected to, at least 99% of the time, I'd say. But you don't always have to be an expert on everything. You have the opportunity to learn more about it, but all of your clients, all of your family, friends, sphere, they should all know that you can sell all things real estate.
And we will attend these meetings or presentations with you. And I think the more that you attend those or help work on those, that you're going to learn a little bit more about that department and the services that each department offers.
And if anybody wants to learn more about like kind of diving deeper into property research or owner research, we're always happy to help you guys with that too. But if no one has any questions,
Thanks for your
That's all we got.
participation today.
thank you so much, guys. This was great.
Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.